The members of the IBEW Local 1245 are legally protected by contracts with over 270 companies, with wages and benefits that lead the utility industry. But how did they achieve this power? This is the story of workers challenging their employers, of labor's ongoing struggle to organize in a fight for better wages, safer working conditions, secure employment, and in short, a better world. In the Roaring '20s, the anti-union American plan was in high gear. Workers were stuck in a rut, while the richest 1% of American households had accumulated 51% of the nation's wealth. This vast inequality helped cause the economic crash of 1929, a crisis that sent working families into a miserable era of hardship, known as the Great Depression. 1/3 of the non-farm workforce became unemployed. Suicides rose by 25%. Desperate and uncertain, many people took to traveling the land in search of work, any work. Ron Weekly and L.L. Mitchell were two of these people. Years later, they would lead a great movement to organize a union at PG&E, but in the early 1930s, they were just two teenagers looking for any work they could get. Mitchell took a job as a whistle punk in the forests east of Fresno, stoking the fires of large steam engines that hauled lumber off the hillsides. His co-workers taught him the ways of the union as practiced by the Industrial Workers of the World, the IBEW, whose members were sometimes called Wobblies.
That's where I really learned what union power was. This old guy I used to work with, he's funny, he'd say, "You know, Mitch, there's no way in the world those bosses are going to hear you with that mill running. We got to shut it down." And that was what they do. If that didn't work, then they'd burn it down. Their own strength was the thing. You can one guy, the whole job walked off. They were united. They were a real fraternity.
Wobblies were militant and proud of it. They believed all workers should unite in one big union. An injury to one, they proclaimed, is an injury to all. Ron Weekly was the son of a Wobbly and the stepson of an IBEW member. He absorbed unionism along with his morning breakfast at his home in Nevada City, but the Depression soon bankrupted his family. Weekly left home, an angry young man, and ended up in San Francisco. The year was 1934. In San Francisco, longshoremen were striking against rotten wages and unsafe working conditions. They had shut down the docks, but the shipping companies wanted the police to help reopen the ports by force. Police shot tear gas canisters and fired their revolvers into the crowds. One officer gunned down Howard Sperry and Nick Bourdois with a shotgun. San Francisco was shaken to its core with grief and anger. Strike leader Harry Bridges led a massive funeral march up Market Street. Over 60,000 workers, including Ron Weekly, walked off their jobs to join what was now the San Francisco General Strike.
I've made myself my promise, never again to grieve my Lord. I will live His gospel story, sweetest story ever told. Ain't gonna grieve my Lord no more. Ain't gonna grieve my Lord no more. Ain't gonna grieve my Lord anymore. Not anymore.
Weekly was just 19 years old, but he walked picket lines, delivered messages, and heckled National Guardsmen. Then his experience with diesel engines landed him a more clandestine role, hijacker. Inside Howard Terminal at the Port of Oakland, Longshore strikers had trapped a group of scabs, but the strikers in turn were encircled by police and were unable to get any food or water. The strike ended in victory. Longshore workers got the better part of an arbitrated settlement and established a strong independent union. Similar strikes were spreading nationwide. In 1935, responding to this labor unrest, President Franklin Roosevelt signed the National Labor Relations Act, giving workers the right to organize a union by majority vote at their workplace. Roosevelt also signed the Public Utilities Holding Company Act, which cut the giant national utility monopolies down to size. This made the utilities easier to regulate and to organize. By this time, PG&E workers were again looking for a way to organize. The IBEW was willing to help the linemen, but showed little interest in organizing gas workers or the other crafts at PG&E. But someone else was very interested. John L. Lewis, president of the Mine Workers Union, broke with the American Federation of Labor and started a new federation called the Congress of Industrial Organizations, the CIO. Lewis appointed Harry Bridges, leader of the 1934 Longshore strike, to begin organizing a CIO union at PG&E. That first organizing drive in 1937 failed. But when Ron Weekly hired on at PG&E in 1940, workers were again talking among themselves about needing a union. These workers knew there was strength in unity. The problem was, two unions were now competing for their loyalty, the IBEW and the CIO.
When up spoke Harry Bridges, us workers got to get wise. Our wives and kids will starve to death if we don't get organized. Oh, the FBI is worried, the bosses, they are scared. They can't deport 6 million men, they know. And we're not gonna let them send Harry over the sea. We'll fight for Harry Bridges and build the CIO.